focus now on what it means to get a nice range of tones by starting with an arc tone bar where we'll practice our tones. Both will practice first our tones from light to dark with this dark sepia pencil, and then we'll start to add in color right on top of this. We'll start with a small thumbnail sketch of your geometric shape. In this case, it's a cylinder because this is to prepare to draw a branch. What's the shadow side? Where will I place that highlight? Make sure I make an indication of that. Once I have that, I almost enlarge that cylinder and do a small area of it enlarged all the way from left to right, so that in this case I can practice my tones completely. There's where I'm going to put the highlight, not in the center but to the left of center. Now I start to add the tone on one side and then the other. This is just a practice tone bar, but it's an opportunity to work on your toning, switch directions, find the way you like to add your tone. Sometimes it's small, tiny little strokes, sometimes bigger strokes lightly at first, and then the strokes get a little bit smaller. Always trying to remind myself to get a complete range from light to dark. And smooth out your tone and your texture as you go, a little at a time. You'll find your own way to do this. Take your time, go slowly. Get closer and closer to where that highlight is going to be and leave that empty for now, but later on you'll go back and work that. Then start working perhaps on your left side. Remember, this is if your light source is coming from the left, okay? Back to the shadow, add a little more tone there. I'm using my dark sepia pencil for this whole exercise to start for my first layer. I want to work this layer until it feels three-dimensional. And once it does, which I think it does now a little bit, I've picked up the watercolor pencil that's closest to the color of my branch, my first layer on my branch. And now I'm laying down the watercolor pencil. You could also just use another colored pencil and not even do watercolor. Not everybody feels comfortable doing the watercolor in the beginning, and that's just fine. In that case, you would just be using a colored pencil now and doing exactly what we're doing here. And then as you can see, the layers are transparent, so the colors start to blend, and you can see a little bit of the dark sepia underneath, so you're still keeping the three-dimensional quality of your tones, and that's what you want to do at all times. And I can still approach that, and then when I'm ready, I'm going to add now, activate the watercolor. This is a water brush. You can also use a regular paintbrush, and I paint the water, trying not to get it too wet. Carefully I add the water, and I might go in a couple of directions with the brush also to get an even transition, if I can, of the watercolor. And then once you finish that, you must let that watercolor dry completely. Go over it a little bit more if you like, but not too much. And then let that dry completely. Once that's dry, you start to bring in your other colors and the regular color pencils now over that. Now you can hear by the sound of this how hard I'm pressing now, because I'm ready to start to saturate a bit more. Not as dark on that left side as the right side. Here again, you're applying your tone, and you want to do it in a careful way and take your time. Clean up as you go if you need to. Switch your colors. So maybe I've got another brown here. Switch directions. You can see I've switched directions a bit. Continuing to add less tone as I get towards that highlight to keep the idea of the gradation of tones from light to dark. Again, you've got to have dark. You have to have really dark, number 10 on the right side. So now I'm adding in the dark sepia, blending with my burnt sienna color. And now another slightly lighter color. Pressing hard again here, you can see this color is lighter. I'm going closer to that highlight. You want to try to get your highlight to shimmer eventually and not look like just a stripe of light. And now back to the burnt sienna. Many, many layers go on this, as you can see. Picked up the ivory now to start burnishing a bit, blending all my colors together, smoothing them, getting rid of some of that texture of the paper that's still showing through. And now I'm showing you below. This is for you to understand what I mean by I want a complete range of tones from dark to light, and I want to have about 10 tones. So I'm just making little segments here to explain what I mean. Even in a small area like this, I want to try to have tones. So there, I'm showing you. It's got to be 10, as dark as you can get. And now I'm laying in what I consider 9, but I'll work these tones a little more. I'm just showing you the idea of when I say 10 tones, I mean 10 tones. So now I'm down to getting towards the mid-tone area. 6, 5, 4 I consider to be my mid-tones. And now to get to the highlight, I've got to get my lighter tones in there. So let's say 3, 2, and then 1 is the color of the paper, leave that blank, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say, on the left side. And that's a nice guide to help yourself realize. And you see here, I'm just trying to get that transition gradual on even this tiny little tone bar to give you the sense of what I mean. And I really mean 10 tones from light to dark, no matter what the color of your subject